Okay, we're back, and I said I was going to start us off by talking about uh, this inserted box I have here, and we're going to be discussing uh, two different unilineal societies. One of them is the Tikopia, who live on a very small island in the Western Pacific, and the other one is the Hopi. Now, the Tikopia are a patrilineal society, and the Hopi are a matrilineal and a matrilocal society. The Tikopia are a patrilineal and a patrilocal society. And to me, they illustrate some different things. So we're going to use the example of the Tikopia to show how kinship organizes all aspects of life in a society. So political life, economic life, social status, and ritual life, religion. So to begin to describe the Tikopia, I think first we need to say, well, we talked about this idea of there being that these clans, right, are totemic. So I think we have to begin with a definition of totemism. What do we mean by totemism? Well, it has something to do with religion. It's a type of religion, actually, and there are people around the world who live in these indigenous societies that practice totemism. So the way that we can define what totemism is something like this. All right. So totemism is describing a system of religious belief, okay, where what people believe is that they have a mystical relationship, or they have kinship with a spirit being. And that spirit being can be something like a plant, or it can be an animal. It doesn't really matter. Now, this totemic plant or animal is also believed to interact with a given kin group. Okay, that's important, that the totem is believed to interact with a given kin group. And then the totem comes to serve as the emblem of that kin group, right? In this case, it's going to be a clan. Okay, so the totem becomes the emblem of that kin group. Emil Durkheim, the sociologist, wrote a book back in 1912, called The Elementary Forms of Religious Life. And in the elementary forms of religious life, he talked about totemism. And the way, when he described totemism, he said something like, the totem is the flag of the clan, right? So that's what we mean when we say that the totem becomes the emblem of the clan. So now to bring us through the Tikopia, I'm going to read to you from that anthropology book by Peoples and Bailey, because they have a good little discussion of this. All right, so here we go. So sit back and relax. Tikopians, they say, trace their descent patrilineally, and all Tikopians belong to one of four patriclans. So we're going to remember that. There are four patriclans, okay? Each patriclan has its own name. All right, good. Each patriclan is subdivided into several patrilineages, averaging 30 to 40 members. The members of each patrilineage trace their descent in the male line back to a common ancestor, the founder of the patrilineage, who lived 4 to 6 generations ago. The oldest male member of a patrilineage is usually its head, who makes certain decisions for the lineage as a whole. Lineages are exogamous, so the children of a lineage's women do not become members of it, right? The children of a lineage's women do not become children of her lineage. They become children of somebody else's lineage. They become children of her husband's lineage, because it's a patrilineal society. Okay, so now, what sorts of activities do Tikopian lineages and clans organize? Here we go. The lineage controls rights to land and other certain kinds of property. Right? So here we're talking about the way the clan, or we're talking about the way that kinship is organizing economic life. Okay, land and access to land and control of land. So again, the lineage controls rights to land and certain other kinds of property. Each lineage owns house sites and several parcels of land planted in crops, including, so here's their crops: yams, taro, coconut, and breadfruit. 4 staple crops: yams, taro, coconut, and breadfruit. So how many staple crops? 4. How many clans? 4, right? 4 patriclans, 4 staple crops. Okay. The families of the lineage have the right to plant and harvest crops on lineage land. They cannot, however, sell, trade, or give it away to members of other lineages. The patrilineage then owns land and allocates use rights to parcels among its members, and each family acquires most of its food through farming the land of the lineage. So there we go. I mean, that's a really good statement about how the lineage is organizing economic life, because what lineage you are part of, the patrilineage, owns that land and allocates the rights to it out to members of the patrilineage. Okay, now let's continue. Ordinarily, each nuclear family cultivates mainly the lineage land of its husband-father. In Tikopia, the female members of a patrilineage retain their use rights to lineage land even after they marry. When a woman marries, a parcel of the land of her lineage is divided off for her own and her husband's and her children's use. So the woman leaves her family, she gets married, she goes to live in the family, the patrilineage, the patriline family of her husband, but she retains the use rights to her family's land, and now she can use it, and her children can use it, and her husband can use it, right? For as long as she's alive, right? For as long as she's alive. So a woman may not, however, pass any of her rights to this land along to her children. When she dies, the use of the parcel reverts back to the patrilineage into which she was born. Thus, each patrilineage allows the female members who marry out of it to use plots of land for subsistence during their lifetimes, but not to transmit rights to the land to their offspring. So there you go. Patrilineages control use rights to land. All right, so economic life. So let's check that out off the box. Kinship organizes economic life. Now, let's go on. Okay, the social rank of individuals is also determined largely by their lineage membership and their status within it. One lineage of each clan is considered the senior lineage because its living members are believed to be descended through males from the founder of the clan. It is the highest ranking lineage of that clan. So I was seeing that where you are situated in a lineage has something now going to do with your social status. Okay. So its members receive certain kinds of respect from their clanmates. The senior lineage of each clan also has the right to select one of its male members to serve as the clan chief. Tikopian kinship thus has a political dimension because authority over others is granted or denied to an individual or group, largely through the descent group's membership and rank. So there, talked about how kinship organizes economic life, and now we're talking about how kinship organizes political life, right? Kinship has a political dimension because it has to do with the allocation of authority. All right, now let's go on. One more thing. One religious duty of clan chiefs is to carry out rituals that ensure the availability of food. So remember we said there are 4 patriclans and there are 4 staple crops. So what's going to happen is that each one of those staple crops becomes a totem representing each of the 4 clans. There's a yam clan, a taro clan, a coconut clan, and a breadfruit clan. Okay, so one religious duty of clan chiefs is to carry out rituals that ensure the availability of food. Each of the 4 major subsistence crops is mystically associated with one of the clans. The gods of this clan control the crop. The clan chief performs the rituals that ensure the continued supply and fertility of whichever crop is quote unquote listened to, as the Tikapia phrase it, the gods of his clan. Thus, each clan, in the person of its chief, has ritual responsibilities toward the other 3 clans. Each clan has ritual responsibilities toward the other 3 clans. A patrilineage, right? A patrilineage 2 has an ancestral home with sacred shrines where its members gather to honor their ancestors. Right. Now, that again, so we've talked about how kinship organizes economic life, how it organizes political life, and how it organizes religious life. Okay. Now, what clan you're in is going to define, what kinds of ritual responsibilities you have, right, to the other clans. Okay. So here's how Peoples and Bailey summarize this, and this is the point that I'm trying to make, right? Tikapians exemplify the diverse functions that are often assigned to kin groups. Patrilineages control use rights to land and some other kinds of property and influence an individual's social rank. Patra clans have political functions, and their chiefs carry out rituals that Tikapians believe are essential for the well-being of all islanders. So there you go. Okay, there you go. All right, now let's talk about the Hopi here a little bit. So the only note I have here about the Hopi is that they are exogamous, right? They live in exogamous matra clans, and they practice matrilocal residence. And I said the husbands, right, are strangers. So what I'm trying to say here, what I'm trying to talk about is the influence of, or the effect of, marriage and residency rules, right, especially residency rules, on, how can I put it, influence, political influence maybe. I don't even mind using that term. Put it on political influence, especially as it relates to gender. Okay, so here's the deal, right? Before I talk about the Hopi, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about Taiwan, right? And you have an article that I sent you. I sent you a link to an article called Uterine Families. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but I sent you a link to an article called Uterine Families. This was an article that I was going to hand out to you in class, but COVID-19 won't let me hand it out to you. So I sent you a link to it. So if you look at that article, I want to read you some quotes about it. Okay. So the people that they're talking about here are a patrilineal society, right? They are patrilineal and they are patrilocal. Okay. Now, here's a description of the wedding ceremony from these people in Taiwan. When a young woman marries, this is Marjorie Wolf talking, right? When a young woman marries, her formal ties with the household of her father are severed. So when a young woman marries, her formal ties with the household of her father are severed. In one of the rituals of the wedding ceremony, the bride's father or brothers symbolically inform her by means of spilt water that she, like the water, may never return. Okay, she's getting married, and symbolically she may never return to her family. Okay, All right, so symbolically inform her by means of spilt water that she, like the water, may never return, and that when her, now get this one, right, when her wedding sedan chair passes over the threshold of her father's house, the doors are slammed shut behind her. That's pretty stark. That's a pretty stark message, right? They carry her out, right, in this sedan chair to her wedding ceremony, and as soon as her sedan chair crosses the threshold of her father's house, they slam the door on her back, symbolically disconnecting her, right, from her own family. Okay. Now I'm going to continue reading here. With the ritual slam of her father's door on her wedding day, a young woman finds herself quite literally without a family. She enters the household of her husband, a man who in an earlier time, say 50 years ago, she would never have met, and who even today, in modern rural Taiwan, she is unlikely to know very well. She is an outsider, and for Chinese, an outsider is always an object of deep suspicion. Her husband and her father-in-law do not see her as a member of their family, but they do see her as essential to it. They have gone to great expense to bring her into their household for the purpose of bearing a new generation for their family. So here's what I want to say here, and I want to go back to the idea. So the Hopi, right, and these people from Taiwan, right? So the woman gets married, she leaves her house, and she goes to live with the family of her husband because they're patrilineal and patrilocal. So that means she's a stranger, right? The bride is a stranger in her husband's house. The bride is a stranger among her husband's family. And I use that word here when I talk about the Hopi. I say, the Hopi live, it's a matrilineal society. They live with these exogamous matriclans, and they practice matrilocality, matrilocal residence, where husbands are strangers. Okay? Husbands are strangers. So what is that idea of women or brides or husbands being strangers? What does that mean? Well, if we live in a patrilocal, right, a patrilineal and patrilocal society, what I'm saying is that patrilocality concentrates male relatives together, right? It keeps male relatives together. Patrilocality keeps male relatives together, okay? And because it keeps male relatives together, it makes it easier for them, to put it in modern terms, it makes it easier for them to network, right? And because it makes it easier for them to network, let me go to the next slide here. Okay. Because it makes it easier for them to network, they can defend, right? They can defend their common interests in all kinds of things like land and wealth and property. Okay. They can network with each other. They can more easily communicate with each other. They can coordinate their efforts. Okay, they can form alliances with each other. So patrilocality is going to concentrate power, political influence in the hands of men. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, everybody get that? All right. Now, if we're in a matrilocal society, let me go back here again. If I can, right? If we're in a matrilocal society like the Hopi, now the men the men are strangers. It's a matrilineal, it's a matrilocal society. So now the men are strangers, and because the men are strangers, that's gonna dilute their influence. You see what I'm saying? So that means in Hopi society, not saying that it's a matriarchy or anything, but what it does do is like I say, it dilutes the influence of men and means now that women, right, women who are related to each other are now localized, and they can, right, and their all the relatives of these women, right, can coordinate their efforts and network with each other. Okay, everybody get that? So you see how the residency rules can influence the kinds of political influence people will have in their society. So let me go back again to this page and say here, right? Let's go to number 2 here for a second, right? This is a really important idea, right? Patriarchy and patrilineal, right? Patriarchy and matriarchy. That archy part in that word means rule by. So patriarchy is a society ruled by men. Matriarchy is supposedly a society ruled by women. But we shouldn't confuse patrilineal with patriarchy, and we shouldn't confuse matrilineal with matriarchy. So patriarchy and patrilineal and matriarchy and matrilineal are not the same. You can have a matrilineal society where control is still held in the hands of men. Okay. Just because the society is matrilineal does not mean that it's ruled by women. Okay. Now, remember that thing I screwed up earlier on, avunculocal resonance. Okay. If we live in a matrilineal society, right, then that means that wealth is going down the woman's line. Okay. Now, some of those societies are matrilineal and matrilocal. So that means the wealth goes to the women and the women live together. Okay. Now, what avunculocal resonance does, right? You have a matrilineal society, but you have avunculocal residency rules. So I got to remember here. I'm going to make sure I don't screw it up again. So I wrote it down. And so avunculocal residence means that a man and a woman get married and they go live with or near the husband's maternal uncle. Okay. So they go live with or near the brother of the husband's mother. All right. So what I'm saying is that avunculocal residency rules bring male members of the matriline together. Okay. And that increases their political and economic influence in that society. Okay. Everybody, I hope everybody's all right. Did you get that? Okay. So we are ready now actually to move on to unilineal societies. And that's what we're going to be heading toward in the next little segment. Okay? So see you later. Bye-bye.